Thank you all so much for answering the invitation to be with us this evening. We know that there are a lot of things that folks have going on, and we're very grateful that you're spending the next 90 minutes with us. As you all know, following the chapter in 2017, we were called to engage further in mercy, in living out mercy values with regard to extractive industries. And one way that we have done that is to create and implement the theological reflection process, awakening a new consciousness, listening to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, in which we're able to engage deeply and center the stories of those impacted by extractive industries in our reflection, in our analysis, and in our transformation. We offered that opportunity for folks, and some of you participated over 5 months starting last fall, but that was a huge commitment of time and energy over that time, at a time when people have many things that are going on. So we wanted to offer something to those who were unable to participate in that time, but are looking forward to how this will be impacting conversations for chapter and moving forward in all of Sisters of Mercy, as this was named as a priority and a call to respond in 2017. So thank you very much for answering that invitation, and we appreciate you being with us tonight. We're going to start our time together in prayer, and I know that Sue Gallagher has asked a few folks to read the prayer for us.
Let us place our feet firmly on the earth. We breathe in the air that is essential for life, and we breathe out the dangers of polluted air.
O God, grant us the grace to grow deeper in our respect of and care for your creation. O Creator, help us to recognize the sacredness of all of your creatures as signs of your wondrous love. Lord,
hear
our prayer.
O Spirit of love, help us to turn from the selfish consumption of resources meant for all, and to see the impacts of our choices on the poor and vulnerable. Lord, hear our prayer.
Thank you. Now that we have centered ourselves in prayer, I'm going to walk you through a little bit what we hope to accomplish this evening and what this process was designed to do. As you saw in the video that I sent out in advance, and have no doubt read and seen in various articles and conversations that have happened over the last 18 months, especially around this extractives theological reflection process, it is threefold. We are engaging in a process that centers in it the stories and experiences of those who are most impacted by extractive industries. We must continue to recenter that and decenter from some of our own experiences and decolonize from some of our own realities. As the first part of this circle, we are called to deep listening. We are listening with our whole hearts to hear the impact of extractive industries on people, on communities, and on earth. Then we move into deep reflection, where we want to deeply engage in theological reflection as well as social analysis, finding our ways to examine and understand the root causes and effects of extractivism. Finally, we move into deep transformation, where we look to move as individuals, as a community, and as an institute into a life that's in harmony and interrelatedness to people's community and earth. It is often our desire to move quickly to those end decision points and decide this is what we should do, this is how we should act based on what we understand to be true about extractive industries. What this process calls us to do is to sit in each of these spaces of deep listening, of deep reflection, and deep transformation, because the decisions and the way that we internalize them and engage them as individuals, as community, as an institute will continue. This is not intended to be a linear process. Our time together tonight will focus primarily on the first two sections, on deep listening and deep reflecting, to provide some grounding and some movement so that as we head forth from our time together this evening, we're able to continue to ask ourselves the question of what that deep transformation looks like for how we move forward as individuals, as a community, and as an institute. Again, I say tonight is abridged. It is intended to be a start. We're so grateful that so many are joining us for this start or for this refresher. And we hope that what we present here and the resources that we will share with you after will continue to engage in ongoing dialogue individually, communally, and as we move forward. I'm going to turn it over now to Sue Gallagher to move into how we define extractivism.
Hi, everyone. As Maggie said, I'm Sue Gallagher, a member of the Institute Justice team, and it's great to be with you tonight. We're going to keep going in the deep listening section of our process here, and I'd like to ask Claudia Ward to read the definition of extractivism for us.
Thank you and good evening.
Yeah, next slide, please. Gloria.
Extractivism is a destructive and exploitative model of development that extracts natural resources on a massive scale, disrupts or destroys biodiversity, impacts global ecosystems, and devastates the health and well-being of local communities while creating significant economic profits for the privileged few.
Thank you, Claudia. Let's take another look at those various phases of extractivism. And I invite you to pick out some words that really impact you when we think about what extractivism does to people, to communities, and to the earth. Which ones really resound with your own sensibilities and heart? I invite you to take note of them as we move through our next phase of our process here tonight. And if you like, please share those impactful words with us all in the chat section. Next, we're invited to enter a living community. This is a community of brothers and sisters and children. And this group is located in the Philippines. Let's continue our deep listening to the stories of this community who are impacted by extractivism. This is a clip from a longer video in defense of life. You can get this if you want to Google it on YouTube later. So now let's go into this community. They're waiting to tell us their story.
For the people from here, their main job here is to do farming. So we are not mixing any chemicals. Ifugao is one of the indigenous people. Ifugao people, they are very poor, but they are very rich in cultures and traditions.
Our culture is the land which we have inherited also to our forefather will also inherit it to the young generation. The culture, the company, I do not know. I do not know. They have the culture. I think the culture of the company is to destroy the environment. That is the practice.
In the Philippines, we have a lot of mining companies extracting our natural resources. Whatever tree is there, they have the right to cut it. And they have the water right. So, and usually where the mining is, it is the protected area where the water resource are. So they have water right. They can have use of the water. They have all these rights. They have more rights than our people.
So we are here at the above the mining company. We are here at Magasin. Because of the Oceana company, there are some people who are living here before, but it's like they abandoned this place because of the way. It's very sad from them. The main problem here is water. So they got a lot of water before, but because of that blastings, it's all the stones was cracked on that time, and then the water will leak now inside. So there's no more water on this area.
So we cannot able to plant our rice field because there is no water. That is our problem. They started only in Dinkaday, one mountain deposit. It destroyed most of the half of the barangay. Then the barangay of the DPO will be destroyed. That is the worry of the community.
Tenon itarom tunok ko nga garod imbes an mo improve da bumrong garod tong karate ne mitaya mo tane medha ostumihi mi pum aran na pumjag nito.
We are working for our children, for their future. We want them to be educated through our farms, through farming. And then we want that this land that we have inherited of our forefather will be inherited to them for their next future.
That is why we are fighting together. We are fighting because we are thinking of our young generation.
Many promises like improvements here in the barangay, physical development, social and cultural development promise.
Many promises. They said, you will become rich here in the DPO. You will might be the richest barangay in this DPO. We will give you hospitals, schools, as a hospital. Where is now the hospital? No hospital.
Almost majority of the content are unfulfilled, and they refuse to fulfill it. They are not doing their responsibility in this country.
So that is why the community were wondering what are the promises.
The mining companies, they will do something so that people will be enticed to go for mining. But this is just nothing compared to what they have taken away from us.
This was a beautiful land. Before we are inhaling fresh air. That is the change. That is the change.
Haibiyag handi natal na nga talaga kasi fresh handi air, matigom handi ya dakor di matigom ang wild animal, ang mabalin ang source of income.
I believe it will become worse, just like in what happened in the other mining companies, because I came from that place and I have seen the effects of the health hazards caused by the emissions of blasting, of explosives.
Land and life is not separated. You cannot separate a native from his land. That's where they live. You cannot get them out from there. So they will always protect their land.
Please do not step in our barangay or do not on our rights, because we have our rights to fight for our land. I will tell them that you better go home because we don't want to be destroyed, our land. Yeah.
Because I am a religious, because I believe in God, I always have hope. And this hope sustained me. But in our situation, hope has to be struggled. We have to work for it. We have to sustain it. Our hope for a change, our hope to fight for justice.
Powerful stories. And let us continue our deep listening by listening to each other and listening, of course, with our ears, and also we can't help but listen with our hearts. So we're going to move into small groups right now. We'd like you to consider two questions, but really a third one that I'll add, and these will be in your chat. First, what feelings are being stirred within you? What is emerging from our hearts? Also, what impacted you the most as you watched and listened to the voices, to the faces in the video? And we're really clear that many of you have your own stories. Many of you have been in communities with stories, so please feel free to share them too.
So hello, everyone, and welcome back. We hope that your small group time was fruitful. We do have time if anyone had a story from firsthand experiences of extractivism and its impact and wanted to share that. You can use the reactions button at the bottom to raise your hand or unmute yourself and share with us briefly if anyone would like. You're also welcome to share any reactions or stories in the chat. Sister Maria, please.
Hello, everyone. Wait, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. I shared this with my group earlier. I just wanted to say that after watching the video, to my experience, I was in the Philippines. I went home to visit my family, and then at the same time to visit the family of our candidate, De Castro. Where she lives, where her family lives, is right there on the barangay or the village that is really a few steps away from the biggest chemical plant in the Philippines. At the same time, another multinational firm, another plastic manufacturer based in Dublin, Ireland, the name of the company is Lendy. And I saw with my own eyes the degradation of the earth, if you will, because the pollution of the bay was obvious. Just talking to Gavina's family, because the father, her father, at some point actually worked for the company, because just like other, maybe similar to the experience of those people in Nueva Vizcaya, that the video where people were promised, a better life, the economic life will improve, promises of hospitals, whatever, schools. And maybe to a certain degree, this area in Batangas, which is south of Manila, is a little bit more affluent than this place that in the video. But again, those promises are, for me, it seems to me, are bribes, if you will, with the people. And for people who are poor, automatically it's something that they would cling on to because it's a promise of a better life. But then in the long run, how it affects them. And this, for Gavina's family, her father was telling me that they used to fish. They would just go out into the bay, and then they would just, every morning, and they would just see all the fish, all the freshwater fish, and those are gone because that area has been polluted. And so, I was watching the video. I kept on saying, I kept on nodding my head because, to a certain degree, like I said, I saw a scenario just this summer, and so that's why it had an impact on me when I did it. And I just wanted to share it with the larger group, and also to, I guess, that the awareness for me was really heightened because I saw it with my own eyes. And the other thing that I just wanted to share with the group is that here in Guam, we may not have mines, we might not have, we don't have mining companies here. We're just a small island, but the destruction of the environment is in the area of military buildup, because there's a lot of detonation exercises happening quite close to where I live, and we've seen quite a number of activists, Chamorro activists, who have been trying to save their sacred land, which have been taken over by the government, by the federal government, because it was going to be used by the military. There is quite a big military buildup here because of the issue in the Asia Pacific region, and Guam is, so, as we all know, is a military island. So, I just wanted to bring that up because it really grabbed me, watching the video and relating it to my experience and also the experience here on Guam.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Those firsthand experiences are so important for us to hear, and we're all grateful. So thank you so much, Sister Maria. Again, feel free to share any other reactions or comments from your small group in the chat, but we're going to move now into that second arrow of the process that Maggie introduced at the beginning. So we spent time with the video and learning about the definition of extractivism, listening, and just now hearing about the situation in Guam. If we can go to the next slide, please. That deep listening and trying to decenter some of our own experiences and listen to the most impacted communities. Now we're going to move into the blue arrow, so the deep reflecting. And this is our time now. We're still not quite ready to ask, what can we do now that we know? It's not a what or how do we respond? It's why and how. Why is this happening? What are the root causes that contribute to the extractive development model? And how is it impacting communities in different ways? So this second part of the process, the reflecting, the judging, we use a theological lens to examine the extractive model from a theological point of view, and we use social analysis. So theological reflection, in our initial months-long theological reflection process, we used 4 different lenses. 3 of those lenses were from the global South, again, decentering our own experiences and listening to the most impacted communities. The 4th lens was our very familiar mercy lens in the spirit of Catherine McCauley, which calls us to serve the suffering of the world through our 5 critical concerns. So we have a video with Sister Terry Bednars, who explains a little bit more about the theological mercy lens, how to use it, and what it means to do social analysis.
In this video, I'm going to give you a brief explanation of how we apply a mercy lens when doing social analysis. Remember, using a particular lens compels us to see differently by prompting us to ask specific questions based on the principles of that lens. When we apply a mercy lens, we're seeking to understand how extractivism impacts each of our critical concerns. The critical concerns, therefore, serve as the principles that guide the kinds of questions we want to focus on. We ask questions like, how does extractivism impact women? How does it contribute to displacement and immigration? How does extractivism affect the health of Earth? What role does racism play in establishing an extractive industry in a particular community? And how does the extractive industry suppress the voices of the community as the community engages in systemic change through nonviolence? Through our mercy lens, we also position ourselves to listen differently. We are called to listen from a decentralized and decolonialized place. We center our attention on what the people and the communities impacted by extractivism are telling us. Social analysis is a tool that many of us are familiar with. It helps us to listen to how extractivism impacts different areas. For example, we listen to the economic impacts of extractivism, the political and environmental impacts of extractivism, the impact on social relationships and community, even how extractivism influences media. We listen to how extractivism impacts the health of the community. Education and even religious institutions are impacted by extractivism. Social analysis helps us ask the questions so that we can probe deeper into the effects of extractivism in each of these areas. So, we form questions based out of our critical concerns to help us engage in a social analysis on the impact of extractive industries in each of these areas: economic, political, environmental, and so forth. In effect, we are applying the mercy lens to our social analysis. As an example, let's take the economic impact of extractivism using social analysis. Through social analysis, we seek answers to such questions as, who owns the extractive industry? How does the extractive industry use economics to displace communities? How does the extractive industry affect local livelihoods? Of course, these are just some of the questions we can ask about the economic impact of an extractive industry. Now, applying a mercy lens, we remember to take a decentralized and decolonialized place and listen to what the community impacted by extractivism is telling us. Then we form our questions on the economic impact using each of our critical concerns. For example, let's form a question related to our critical concern regarding women. In what ways is the economically powerful extractive industry affecting women and their community? We can form another question from our critical concerns. This time we'll focus on racism. In what ways does the extractive industry target and exploit communities of color? How does the extractive industry use economics to force the displacement of communities of color? When we dig deeper, we find that every one of our critical concerns are impacted in every area of social analysis. In other words, all 5 of our critical concerns are impacted by the economic effect of extractivism. All 5 of our critical concerns are affected by the political impact of extractivism, and all 5 of our critical concerns are affected by the environmental impact of extractivism, and so forth. So, in review, using a mercy lens centers on our critical concerns with the understanding that we take a decentered and decolonialized place as we listen to what the community impacted by extractivism is telling us. So, when we apply this lens to social analysis, we ask questions using principles from our mercy perspective, and this helps us see differently.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you to Sister Terry. If we can go to the next slide, just to show you this graphic one more time and to reiterate what Sister Terry was explaining. Social analysis invites us to say, what is really going on in this situation from different angles? And then we consider the impact of extractivism from these different categories that you see here. Then when we reflect on extractivism through that mercy theological lens, we ask about its impacts in the areas of our critical concerns. And so hopefully this is a helpful tool for pausing and reflecting on all that we continue to hear and the stories of the most impacted communities before we jump ahead to what we can do. We're going to break into small groups again. We'll put some questions in the chat for you to see and give you some place to start reflecting on the theological reflection piece. So what stays with you during this description of the mercy lens and social analysis? Is there something that stands out to you or challenges you or a new concept? And then how does reflecting in this way challenge our own complicity in the extractive development model, our personal complicity, our communal complicity, and our corporate complicity? Give you some food for thought as you break into your small groups, and we'll see you back here in about 10 minutes.
Hello, welcome back. Thank you, everyone. I hope you had some good conversations. As Angie mentioned, the mercy lens that was presented was one of multiple lenses that were used during the extractive theological reflection process. And I encourage you, as you consider this as an ongoing cycle, to take and explore some of the other lenses that were there, to either reconnect with approaches that you've personally engaged with before, or to stretch yourself in ways that maybe you hadn't engaged in analysis and theological consideration before. The mercy lens was all about helping us to see where the intersection of the critical concerns and social analysis come together. And what we have here before you is a bit of a graphical representation of what that means. All of this, the impact of extractivism through the lens of critical concern, doesn't just mean one thing. It doesn't just mean one issue, one example as played through one part of the critical concern. So many of these things are connected. So I'm going to let you sit with this and look at it briefly, and feel free to write in the chat either something that strikes you from your conversation that you had in your small group, or which of these what is your eye drawn to as you look at all of these different issues or examples of how extractivism impacts the intersection of the critical concerns. Now we're going to move into, in order to fully embrace, even in this short period of time, a time of reflection and consideration, we're going to move into a bit of a contemplative space together. We're going to move into some silence where we'll be showing you some different images that are connected to extractivism and the critical concerns. And we ask you just to sit and look at them and think, and pray. And we're going to put some questions in the chat here for you to be considering as you look at these pictures. What do you see in these photos? How do they make you feel? Do you see them differently after hearing the stories of some impacted communities and analyzing through a mercy lens? So we'll just go through these slowly. Thank you to those who shared. In the chat, I encourage folks to open it up and read what your fellow participants saw and were struck by in moving this. And as someone said, we have the information, and now what does it mean for us to move forward? Or now we need the commitment. What does it mean for us to move forward in that way? And that's the space where we move to here, which, as you can tell from our time, we are not going to spend a significant amount of time collectively determining what that deep transformation looks like. What we're going to do is know that we have spent this time together in the deep listening, in the deep reflecting, and that it propels us and informs what looks like our next level of deep transformation that must happen as individuals, as communities, and as an institute. What is it that we need to do to make decisions that move us into a life as individuals, a community, and an institute that is in harmony and interrelatedness to peoples, communities, and Earth? How can we continue to recenter our personal, communal, and corporate decision-making to stand in solidarity with people, communities, and Earth harmed by extractive industries? So we carry that forward. As you see, and as we stated at the beginning, this is a circle. This is a cycle. There is that education, listening, and reflecting that we are doing now as we move into chapter, as we move into individual decisions, as we move into all of these pieces that cause us to change our way of thinking, that cause us to make different decisions. And after we make those decisions, we listen more, we reflect more, and we understand what that next level of transformation and of decision making looks like. So we ask you to move forward to the next slide, where how do we respond? What does that response look like? Carry forth these questions with you. Ask them of yourselves. We must ask them of each other. We must ask them of our systems, of our institutions, of our structures. What might we see differently and understand differently now, even with this small exposure and engagement around this theological reflection? How do we ensure that we continue to move forward, centered in the voices people most impacted, over stories of corporations, consumerism, and those who have traditionally held power? How can we use our individual, communal, and corporate voices to awaken our world to what we have learned? We call you forth and ask you to move from this space that we are in here and continue to ask those questions to each other in your conversation circles, within chapter, within other decisions, within your own decisions about your own life as you're moving forward. Next slide, please. As we acknowledge that there are different ways to move forward in how to impact change and to make people-centered decisions. And we want to share a few of what those examples are here, with more details that exist in the materials that are on the website. The first is alternative economic models. What is it that looks different? Are these decisions driven by capitalism, by consumerism? What are other models that exist? What does it mean to actively explore them, to understand them, to engage with them? What does that mean for us as individuals? What does it mean as mercy? What are the personal lifestyle choices that we're making each day that move that either take with us what we have learned and continue to center in those stories, or cause additional harm and feed into the model and the decisions and the consumerism that exists? How can our personal lifestyle choices change? How should they change? How do we get out of that comfort zone, as someone put in the chat? What does it mean to truly engage in accompaniment and solidarity in the places where on the ground communities, particularly poorer communities, communities of color, Black, Indigenous, people, those communities are being most impacted? What does it mean as an individual, as a community, as Mercy, to truly be in accompaniment and solidarity with those communities? What does corporate intervention look like? How does that impact change, whether it be boycotts, shareholder advocacy, other pieces to to demonstrate to corporations that their power needs to shift, that the shifting of power needs to change, and how they are using their power needs to change. What are the legal interventions that happen? We've seen in Peru, in other places where there can be impact and stopping of mining and the impact on communities based on long fought legal intervention in these areas. What does that look like? What does that mean, again, for us as individuals, as a community, as an institute? Creative protests, we saw that in some of the images that we shared during that contemplative time, what some of that creative protest look like. Where are we called to engage in that creative protest or support those who are engaging in those creative protests? Our purchasing decisions, how do the institute level, our individual level decisions of purchasing feed the system, feed the model of the extractive development model, and how do they look to change it? How is it that we can use that purchasing power that exists for individuals, for us as a collective? How are we intentionally using and engaging in that to impact change and to have transformative impact? How are we bringing into the center of those decisions the stories that we've heard today and the many other stories that we haven't shared together, but that we know exists? And finally, our investment decisions. This is part of what drove some of the conversation at Chapter in 2017 and has been at the center of conversations for us as we move this forward. What does it mean for Mercy to have investments in areas that are related to extractive industries? And how has Mercy Investment Services, since the call in 2017, made changes to answer that? I encourage folks to read through the accountability report that will come out from the ILT and from MIS that speak to some of these pieces, and some of them aren't spoken to there. And where is it missing? Where have we challenged ourselves enough? Where do we need to challenge ourselves and commit ourselves more to continue to ask ourselves these questions, to keep that cycle moving of deep transformation leading to more deep listening, to deep reflecting, to significant, impactful change for not just individual pieces, but for the systems? And what role do each of us have in that? This concludes our time together tonight, our 90-minute session of a 5-month process that was developed by a group, as you saw from the video I sent out, of sisters and myself and communication staff who were part of a theological reflection working group that developed these materials that still exist for you to delve deeper into after this session tonight and after further conversation. I want to thank those folks for helping to provide the resources that led us here. Thank the rest of the justice team who was part of the conversation tonight, Angie and Sue and Mike behind the scenes especially. And I want to thank all of you for making the commitment, answering the invitation to be here tonight and to continue to raise and engage these questions, because this is a cycle where we must continue to learn more, understand more, and it will change us. It will change us as individuals, it will change us as a community and as an institute. And how can we be ready for that? So thank you all very much for your time. Thank you to our interpreters for their time tonight. And I hope everyone has a good night.
Thank you.
Or good morning.
Thank you. Good evening. Good morning.
Gracias.
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 Gracias,
everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody.
All right.
Gracias
a todas. Gracias.
Maggie. Gracias.
Okay.
Gracias.
Hola.
Very good seeing
Chao,
you.
hermanas. Chao.
Chao, cuídense.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Nice to see you.
Bye.
Bye.